this is just like a growing trend that I have seen more and more often. More and more, kind of your health influencers are, they got the little device on the back of their tricep, and they're, oh yeah, I'm wearing this CGM. I'm monitoring my glucose, my blood sugar for the next 30 days. What I didn't know, and I was just doing a little cursory search just to kind of poke around. Just recently, within literally the last 2 weeks, the FDA actually approved the first over-the-counter continuous glucose monitor, approved it for marketing.
After all this time.
Yeah, to which I was like,
wait a minute.
This wasn't available over the counter this entire time, because that was my first, I think, my first contact with that type of marketing was, I think, probably the Huberman podcast or some of the other kind of big name podcasts. And there was a company that was advertising on that podcast that was, monitor your blood sugar. You get the app. This is kind of, for the type of person who's listening to the Huberman podcast, who's a little more curious about some of this data. This is something for you. And not once in any of these advertisements did they mention that this is a medical device that is reserved for diabetics. Not once did they mention that this is a service that requires a prescription, where it should have required a prescription. Because as of now, just 2 weeks ago, now it doesn't. So that was a surprise to me. Was, wait, you needed a prescription for CGMs this entire time? This was supposed to be still by law dedicated for diabetics, the medical device for diabetics. Now it's for non-diabetics. Like that, they were advertising this 3 years ago.
Yeah,
at
exactly.
Least.
They were.
Yeah, there's 2 companies that were making these things. I don't know if it's kind of expanded. I don't know, but there's 2 big companies that are making them. The one that you're talking about is the one that I would came to mind first.
Yeah.
I mean, they're huge. These are major companies that are making a lot of money and have been making a lot of money. And the only reason it would go over the counter is because it's a big money maker. They know it, and they're looking to do more.
Yeah, and apparently they've been skirting the law in terms of you actually needing a medical condition.
Wait.
Yeah, way.
The FDA, somebody from some medical device or pharmaceutical company have been skirting the law.
Yeah, that is what it appears, because when I saw this, the FDA release, the news release, and the company that was granted this clearance, which was not this. It was a specific device. Number one, it's a specific model that is manufactured by this specific company, and the company that I had heard before on the podcasts, they offer CGMs that are manufactured by that same company, but a different model. So I was like, okay, apparently you should have needed a prescription for this up until 5 minutes ago.
Right.
So let me go to this website, because that was never mentioned in any of the ads that I heard, the marketing that I heard, which apparently wasn't supposed to be happening until earlier this month. I go to their website and I'm like, okay, let me go through the process. Let me see how far I can get into this process before any mention is made that a prescription is required for this type of thing.
That's interesting, man. I think the constant glucose monitors have been around for a while. I'm wondering if we cross-reference like patents that maybe just got approved against this FDA approval. I wonder if there's any correlation there. Like, I wonder if this was kind of like an experimental thing, and then it finally like got a patent or got approval. So then it was finally like FDA is like, okay, we'll finally sign off on it. In the meantime, like, you're holding the liability, but there really isn't any, because nobody's going to really come after you for any of this stuff.
As far as like these getting into the hands of non-diabetics with some phony ass prescription.
Yeah. So again, constant glucose monitoring, or monitors in this particular case. I like, what's inherently bad about this and people getting, people that aren't diabetic using those. So let's start for a second, because I think is there anything bad, or is there anything that can be gained, by understanding?
Probably both.
And yes, there's both at the end of the day. Well, let's just talk about like constant glucose monitors. You mentioned it's basically like a little pod that you'll see most people wearing sort of on the backside of their tricep or outside of their arm, because it's kind of out of the way. And it's, it stays on permanently. But maybe we could just talk about kind of what the device is, how it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a continuous glucose monitor. So it's something that you wear typically for 2 weeks to 30 days that is providing continuous feedback on your blood sugar. So essentially how it is working, nowadays, well, let's take it back a little bit. Number one, this was invented or developed as a medical device for use by medical professionals in a clinical setting with people who have diabetes.
Type 2.
Type 2 diabetes. You could use it for type 1 as well, but type 2 diabetes, yes, was the initial impetus for it. And these were only approved for use outside of a clinic in 2016. So for in-home use under medical supervision, it's only the last 7 years that people have even been able to use these basically outside of like a hospital or a clinic. So I think that's important to keep in mind, that this is a complicated enough device that it was only approved for use at home under the supervision of a medical professional 7 years ago. And now people are going to be just using them on their own, no medical supervision, just here you go. Here's this medical device. Figure out something to do with it.
Kind of like a wearable device, like your Whoop. Just put it on, and then there you go. There's the data.
Potentially even less feedback, though, less context. You just this thing just gives you data and okay, here's the data. What do I do with this data?
Yeah, to be clear, we're talking about type 1, type 2. I think I said type 2 or meant type 1. People that are trying to monitor their blood glucose and their blood sugar in terms of so a type 1 person is insulin dependent. Their pancreas is not working properly to help manage blood sugar. So and again, the pancreas being the part of the endocrine system that releases insulin. So you have to constantly be monitoring your blood sugar or blood glucose to know when to administer insulin so that the body does what it needs to do. And that includes brain function, metabolic function.
So don't go hypoglycemic.
And potentially die. So there's some seriousness to this. And, in the past, it's been like a pinprick or a finger type monitor, which, it's something that you do, kind of in the moment. It's not something that's being done consistently. And you would have to literally prick your finger to a certain extent.
Get the blood sample.
Get a blood sample to kind of, for that monitor to read it.
Glucometer, yep.
Yeah. So now what we have is this thing that kind of sits on you all the time. You don't have to constantly go through that pricking process, right? And it will give you this constant reading, and so that without having to take time out. Like, it could alert you. The only way you would know what your blood sugar is by pricking your finger. Now you know what your blood suger is all the time.
Monitoring it in real time.
You can constantly monitor it, right? So, sorry, going back to the type 1 versus type 2. But it was starting to come into the type 2 people to help them maybe with some behavior change and also understanding what their blood sugar levels were like throughout their glucose
how certain
levels.
Foods affect,
So there's a couple things here. One, how the device works. Basically, instead of pricking your finger all the time, there's a little filament, right, within this device. You could kind of think of it like a little needle, right, for lack of a better term. You put it on your arm. It stays on your arm. It's like held by an adhesive, right? And this filament goes underneath the skin and what we'll call like the interstitial tissue where there is fluid. It doesn't go into your bloodstream. It goes into your interstitial fluid. And basically this thing has been calibrated to basically understand the ratios between blood sugar in the bloodstream and what's in the interstitial fluid, and that's the readout that it's giving you. So it's very convenient, right? It's non-invasive in a lot of ways, and it gives you a constant feedback and can be tracked, obviously. So your doctor could be tracking this, not only
seeing trends,
in seeing trends, not only for like right in front of you through pinpricking, and you basically reporting that data. They can be monitoring this from wherever because it connects to a device,
kind of app or something.
Yeah, and that could be obviously monitored from her. So your doctor could be in Brazil, and you could be in here in San Jose, California, and you could be having a conversation. This person could be seeing what's going on and has been going on for quite some time. So that's what the device does. And the question you're bringing up is like, hold on, people have been using these things for a long time, like that aren't diabetic. Yet we've just heard from the FDA that we've just approved that it can be
used by non-diabetics.
Yeah, without a prescription.
Yeah.
Why the hell are they using these things anyways, right? When we just talked about, okay, here's how it fits into the diabetic population. And going back to like the type 2 person, like this is helping in a lot of ways them understand what the severity of their fluctuations may or may not be throughout the day. And also how certain foods, to your point, may impact them in certain ways to maybe manage those foods better and the behavior better around those foods and activities.
Impact their medication may be having as well. So yeah.
It's giving you way more feedback than this, finger pricking, that was going on. The other part of this is you get to understand how certain activities influence blood sugar levels. Like exercise influences, you're going to get especially if you're in exercising intensely, like a Tabata type thing or like a WOD, type thing or something like that, where you're going, you should expect a very high output of blood sugar during that time. A lot of times that's just your body releasing stored sugar from the liver or from muscle glycogen in order to fuel your body during exercise. That's very normal. But having this monitor on was showing these people could show these people how those things were impacting them and hopefully change their behavior in some kind of way and at least give the doctor some insight to what might be going on.
Helping them manage a disease. That's what it was designed to do.
So that was the intention, right? However, now we've got non-diabetics using them. And the question that I would have is, why would they do this?
Yeah. Is this appropriate? So, I mean, I think it always at the end of the day boils down to trying to lose weight. And I think that is, there is some mainstream.
There it is.
Yeah, there is some mainstream understanding now that blood sugar has something to do with weight. The general population is like, blood sugar. That's
blood sugar bad.
Yeah. Blood sugar high, bad. Eat less sugar because makes me fat. So that might be someone who is, to be honest, I don't think that's who these companies are really marketing towards. I think they're marketing more towards those, the air quote biohackers, the longevity people who are looking to pay a little more attention, who are, I call them prosumers, not your standard consumer. This is your professional consumer, but it's still not someone who is, has a medical condition. It's someone who's willing to pay out of pocket to have a little bit more detail and really understand what's going on with their body. That said, just because, you can put down the money for it doesn't mean it's an appropriate device for you. And it doesn't mean that you know how to interpret the data in a way that is meaningful. So that was in that FDA news release that sent me down a little bit of rabbit hole of other news reports about this, about this announcement, and the COO or whatever of the manufacturer is like, oh, well, no, this is still designed for diabetics. This is still designed for diabetics because we're not providing, like the app that you connect it to is not providing the same context that just a normal consumer would need in order to understand this data.
I love when they say shit
it's like it's this double talk. No, it's non-diabetics can use it, but this is still supposed to be for diabetics.
Whatever, dude.
But if, it gets in the hands of some non-diabetics and they pay us for it, that's not necessarily a problem, but it's for diabetics though. Sure, it's for diabetics. So what ends up happening is you have people who get their hands on these. They don't know how to interpret the data. They don't understand blood sugar fluctuations are normal. So they freak out. They overreact. That's just what I see. I see someone not understanding how to interpret this data, but because they paid for it, they're paying attention to it.
I think this is why we're having this talk, because we generally deal with, let's just say, a healthy population that is trying to be healthier. And in some levels that healthy can be on a little bit of a spectrum, right? They could be doing a lot better job taking care of their health. And that's why they're seeing and talking to us. That's why we're having these meetings. But they're also very misunderstood a lot of times on how to make that happen. And that's where we come in as coaches.
They come in misguided, we guide.
Yeah, or at least we attempt to. So, but they get caught up in all of this stuff, right? And
things like this.
And so there's people listening to this who maybe wear one of these because they are a diabetic or pre-diabetic, or they know somebody in their family that is, for whatever reason, or they're non-diabetic or know somebody that's non-diabetic, as a friend or a family member that's also using one. So just kind of clearing up some things. You nailed it. There's money in this. And a lot of it is wrapped around the weight loss market. And I don't know how much of this got caught on there before we started, but I think a lot of it is also wrapped around the longevity market, right? And you kind of mentioned like blood sugar bad. Like, I think well, there's two things to understand. One is like, what benefit would there be to a non-diabetic tracking their blood glucose, right? In terms of performance or weight loss and or longevity. And I think on the longevity side of things is kind of where this really gets pushed. These are really your prosumers, to your point on that statement. And that is, well, there is something that's really important about this, and that is we know those with a lower average blood sugar also have lower risk for all-cause mortality. So if, in theory, by keeping that blood sugar at a lower average than whatever the normal is, whatever that actuated value has been decided, you could live longer. Like you're less chance of cancer, less chance of heart attack, less chance of atherosclerosis, less chance of all of the things that are killing people that you would die from. That, look, if I'm trying to live longer and live my best life, that could be important to me. But also to your point, and that is the information that they have and what do they do with that information. So for a long time, I used to think that it was a lack of information that created problems for people. Well, clearly that isn't the fucking case, right? And so many things, right? I also described, like, when I started in the fitness industry, I used to look at, from the coaches or personal trainers perspective, then we were information givers. We were trying to stay out in front of knowing what the information was to be able to educate and provide that information to the consumer, whoever it was, or client that didn't know, right? They didn't know. They maybe heard some things, but they were looking to us for direction and for answers. And, for a long time, I thought we did a pretty good job at that. I also think I did a really shitty job at that for a long time because I thought I knew more than I did, or I only knew what I knew, right? That kind of thing.
Didn't know what you didn't know.
You didn't know what I didn't know, all of the things, right? And then the internet came along, and the internet was just kind of starting up when I started, right? And then things changed. And then we became what I would call, and I think we still are now, only it goes even deeper. And that is, drastic, I would call us, we're information interpreters. We have to understand what is it that our client has heard, thinks they know, has read, has been fed, what psyop they've gone through or whatever, to then begin to have a conversation about even where do I even take this thing now, to be a better information provider, to help the client make a more informed decision for themselves, because I'm not making the decisions for them. They have to make their own decision. And hopefully what I can do is put some things in front of them, right? Some choices to make a better decision for themselves, to improve whatever it is they're looking to improve.
An educated decision, yeah.
The challenge with decision. Yes, the educated, informed decision. It's not always the right one, but at least hopefully we can help them be more informed,
or at least conscious choice, at least.
Yeah, and be a better advocate for themselves in terms of maybe having the next level conversation with whoever that's going to be. The challenge is, and continues to be, all of this information that is out there. And the more information that ends up getting provided, I think the more dumbed down it ends up getting, and the more concentrated people get and fixated on these things. And so here we are talking about constant glucose monitors and blood sugar levels. And it's important. Like I just said, this is fact. Like, lower average blood glucose levels reduce your risk for all-cause mortality.
Live longer.
You live longer. Who doesn't want to do that? That's important. But to use that as the only measurement or only metric, or be completely focused on that, it's absurd. It's absurd, especially if you don't know what the fuck you're even looking at or what those numbers even mean for you. Like, I mean, so going back to the conversations you've had and the popularity that comes up, I mean, what invariably happens when somebody slaps one of these things on their arm, whether they're diabetic or not? I mean, what are some of the realizations that people have?
That their blood sugar spikes on a regular basis. I think that would be the first thing that comes to mind. But that, knowing that is natural, and understanding, okay, well, yeah, my blood sugar spikes after I eat, but how long does it stay elevated? Is it chronically elevated? Or do I need to freak out that because I had this meal, this meter, I see a big hill on my data. It was flat, now it's tall. That's bad, right? So understanding that blood sugar fluctuations are natural, understanding that I think the difference between glycemic index and glycemic load comes into play here. I think that's something that we probably need to talk about, that it absolutely matters the serving size, like the quantity you're consuming and what you're consuming along with the carbohydrate source, that is going to have an effect on the severity of the blood sugar spike, how long the blood sugar spike lasts. Like, understanding all these nuances, most people they don't understand those nuances. Or, maybe there are people, like I said, those prosumer biohackers who they actually have educated themselves enough to interpret this data. But what I kind of foresee is that now that this is available over the counter, no prescription required for non-diabetics, we're already getting flooded with like the era of weight loss drugs that are also for diabetes, but for weight loss, that blurring that line. So we're really blurring the line between diabetics and just normal people, or, well, not to say that diabetics are abnormal, but you know what I'm saying. People who don't have a diagnosed medical condition. These types of devices are going to get into the hands of more and more entry level, Gen Pop type of people who are not going to, they're going to, I need to lose some weight. So I think I've heard I need to be monitoring my blood sugar. I'm going to pay, which, by the way, I went through that little experiment as far as, let me see how far I can get before a prescription is even mentioned. I already chose my plan. I did all kinds of stuff before a prescription was even mentioned. But the basic package, that's going to cost you $240 monthly because the CGM is only used for 15 to 30 days at a time. So if this is something that you want to keep up over a period of time, it's going to cost you $250 a month. Well, the initially is like $300, and then it'll be recurring like $240 a month. So it's a lot of money out of pocket for someone who thinks they need this level of precision and probably doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's the
work on the fundamentals first.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, it's just like we're taking this one metric, and if you start making life decisions on that one metric, if you're a diabetic, particularly a type 1 diabetic, that's important. Yeah, like that number is important every day.
It quite literally could be life and death
throughout the day. It's very important. But for that person that's non-diabetic, that is trying to, again, perform better, look better, live longer, kind of approach to things, like, you also have to look at all the other factors. You have to look at weight, right? You have to look at like heart rate, blood pressure. All of those things play in to the larger picture. What the hell are you doing with that information? Because again, going back, you're going to slap one of these things on. The first thing you're going to realize is like what happened, or how things impact you, particularly foods. Like, put a certain food in there, you're going to be like, holy shit, I had no idea. That's what I hear. I've never worn one of these things before. I've had some lactate threshold testing done, which is very interesting. It's totally different. And so I've had my finger pricked to understand what that is. That's kind of an old school test at a different time in my life. But my point of that is I've never done blood glucose monitoring. I've never needed to. I've never felt the need to. I know what my A1C is.
You seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, I know what my fasting glucose is. Like, I know what all those things are. So I've never had to take a test, or anything. There's nothing that's ever raised a red flag. But the point of this is, like, now you have all this information. What the hell are you going to do with it? What life decisions are you making on this? Well, I'm never, ever, ever going to eat an apple ever again because
when I spiked my sugar.
Because when I ate that apple, like, it spiked my sugar
on an empty stomach,
my blood sugar.
With nothing else by itself, and not understanding, the impact of the other factors there.
Yeah, I would even say, like, I'm never drinking a beer ever again in my life because this is what happened. This is what my CGM told me.
It got mad at me. Yeah.
Yeah, it exactly. So, and I'm not saying like don't drink beer, do whatever, right? There's a lot of reasons why you would and wouldn't do that. But I think, again, this information and this overload of information is what stops people in their tracks, and it gets them to be dumb. It dumbs shit down. Exercise is going to impact that. At the same time, going back to the behavior change that could occur here, I believe that happens in a positive environment for those people that are already generally have a pretty good understanding of all the things that are going on. And They think that's a very fucking small percentage of people. I think people have a way overinflated self-confidence of what they think they know about how their body works and what they hear on the interwebs and everything else. It challenges me. That's why we try to keep things within a certain framework here. We try not to get too far outside the lines of too many things, because we know what we don't know, right? In a sense. And we're not trying to reach outside our bounds. At the same time, we're trying to, we also understand who the audience is and what they probably need to know versus what is just too much information. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Lost in the sauce, yeah.
Because we deal with the lost in the sauce all day, every day. And guess what that does? Whenever you get lost in the sauce, you don't get the result you're looking for. Some people get so lost in that sauce that somehow, and they've been there for so long, even luck can catch up with that person, right? And occasionally they might be lucky and they might have some kind of result. But at the end of the day, it's never long lasting. And they end up coming back. And to your point, Cece, it's like, we need to focus on the fucking fundamentals, right? So where does the blood sugar play in here? You were talking about glycemic load, glycemic index. A few years ago, it's a long time ago, that was kind of a big deal, like in talking about what that means. And I think people maybe have heard this. Can we go back to that for a second? I want to just talk about what glycemic index is versus glycemic load. Why it's important to understand that at some level, not at a deep level, right? And how you can leverage these things, right? And to be positive for you, regardless of what your glucose monitor says.
Yeah. So glycemic index, I think, is the one that has classically or traditionally, more people have probably heard of glycemic index than glycemic load. Glycemic index is basically a ranking system or a categorizing system for foods. Yeah, a score from 0 to 100 that basically measures how much a food raises blood glucose relative to pure glucose. So pure glucose is 100 on the scale. If something has a glycemic index score of 40, that means it raises the blood glucose 40% as much as pure glucose. So obviously, the lower the number, the more, typically diabetic friendly, blood sugar friendly the food. I think it's below 55 is considered low, 55 to 70 is moderate, and then above 70 is considered a high glycemic food. So the important thing to keep in mind, though, is that glycemic index is kind of in a vacuum where it measures a food that you are, number one, that you are eating. It is a serving that yields 50 grams of carbs. So I think that's important to think about. And I'll use the example of rice versus beets. So it is very easy in a typical serving of rice that someone is actually going to eat to get 50 grams of carbohydrate. It's a mouthful. It's a much more carbohydrate dense food versus beets. A typical serving of beets to get 50 grams of carbs out of that, no one is going to eat that many beets. However, if we're going, 50 grams of rice or 50 grams of carbohydrates from rice, 50 grams of carbohydrates from beets, their glycemic index is actually about the same. So if you're eating a mountain of beets and 1 cup of rice, it will raise your blood glucose about the same. But if you're not thinking about that serving size component of it, you're thinking beets are bad for my blood sugar because it's I think rices could be anywhere between 70 and almost pure glucose, almost, 90s. And then beets glycemic index is 65, which makes it sound like it is not friendly to blood sugar. But the caveat is that is the serving size, is the portion size. So that's where glycemic load comes into play, because it actually is taking into account what a typical serving is and what you are consuming with that, carbohydrate source. So the glycemic load is much more accurate in that, rice glycemic load is well over 20, which is high. Over 20 is high. Beets is 5. So glycemic index, they're about the same. Glycemic load is completely different because in a typical serving that someone would actually be eating of beets or of blueberries or whatever, the blood sugar spike is going to be much less than a standard serving of rice. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
All right.
Well, what doesn't make sense is why you would try to get that many beets in your system at one time. Because if you did, and you went to the bathroom,
blow it up.
No, you feel like you look in the toilet and just go like, I'm hemorrhaging. Oh my God, I'm bleeding. I'm literally bleeding out of everywhere.
My blood sugar or my blood pressure, nice and low.
It's awful.
Maybe you got somebody that you're going to see with your beats.
I think you did a really good job of explaining that. And again, for a lot of people, they may have heard that term before and not completely understood, or those terms before and not completely understood them. This was a big deal a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, let's go to 10, 15 years ago.
10, 15.
10, 15 years ago, glycemic load, glycemic index was a thing, and it kind of went away because there was a lot of marketing around a lot of things that when people finally understood what those two terms meant, they were like, oh shit, like, then this is bullshit. This diet is bullshit.
Low glycemic diet.
Right. Right. This what was the diet called? Was it Sears who wrote the diet? Was this Barry Sears, the zone diet? Was he the same guy?
I think you mentioned that before, yeah.
Yeah, the zone diet, where there's, a lot of carbohydrate and whatnot. Like, people started to look at it and go like, well, the type of carbohydrate matters here, right?
And what you're consuming with the carbohydrates.
Well, exactly. So if I'm consuming a lot of protein or a lot of fat with that, how does that impact my blood sugar? Well, when you throw on a CGM, you would see like a definite difference. Like, not all things impact you the same way every time, unless it's in a vacuum. Maybe it does. So again, going back to like this, keeping your blood sugar as low as possible, low as average as possible, to increase your longevity. There's a thing there, and I think part of the problem again with the information and the technology is, I think the technology is in front of the data. It's way in front of the data, way in front of the research. We just don't really know enough. There hasn't been enough. I think we do, though. Like, here's the thing on the back end. I'm like, we fucking know. Like, okay, some things might come up, but I don't think we're going to learn anything earth-shattering. All we're going to see is people try to market this as a faster way to weight loss, or a cure to diabetes, which we know how this ends. We know how that little tail ends, and it's the same way every time. No, it doesn't. You know how else you can keep your average? You want to drop your A1C and improve that number? We know caloric restriction will do this. Like, we know caloric restriction will do this. Again, going back to like the fasting thing. So if you're fasting, let's just say you're doing like time restricted feeding, right? And you're trying to keep this low average blood glucose, right? The whole time. Well, what do you think's going on while you're fasting? Generally speaking, it's probably going to stay fairly low. That's reasonable to think. But you're exercising, right? So it will spike then, right? And it should spike then. Hopefully it's doing that. If it's not, you're probably going to have a really shitty workout.
Quite depleted.
And then what do you think's going to happen when you put that food back in you, right? It's going to spike, right? You've got very low blood sugar, right? Your body is going to have to deal with that
dramatic,
for that 8-hour period if you're doing the whole 8-16 thing, right? Over the course of the 24 hours, whether you're eating 8-16 or you're just eating 12-12, something like that, what's the average? Is it the same? Is it less? Or is it more? That's the number that you would want to be looking at. And if you're doing this, you're doing like I don't want to get on a tangent here, but this time restricted feeding as a means to lower your average blood glucose. If you took that over, you extrapolate that over time or over some other eating, pattern, have you really made a difference there in terms of your total average? And I'm not talking about a 24-hour period. You need to manage this over the course of a week and see kind of, or if the 15 days, or the 30 days would be probably more accurate to kind of see what's going on. But I can already see this is where this is going to get pushed. See what I did for, a couple of days, and it lowered my average for, the couple of days. Well, what about as your body adapts over the next couple of weeks and into that month? Does it stay there? We don't see those studies don't exist. We haven't seen them yet. Yet you're going to see shit marketed that suggests that this was the way. Like, we found a new way.
Yeah,
that's my take.
We found something new, and I think that is, I think it all comes back around to people are going to get their hands on these things, and they may see, oh, well, my average was lower here, and then I ate this food and it spiked really high, so therefore that food is bad. When not taking into account the the context with which they consumed that food. It wasn't the food, it was that you were fasting before, or it's that you slept poorly the night before. Those factors are going to come into play as well. Your average blood sugar may increase when you're sleep deprived, and now you're thinking that it's because of what you're eating when it's because of how you're sleeping.
And that's dumb.
Yeah, it's just a lot of,
and that's dumb.
It creates a lot of opportunity for confusion. I think that's kind of what it boils down to for me.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Sorry, I'm so fired up about this whole thing now as I'm thinking about the continued confusion that it brings to people and the detrimental effects that could have, like again, on somebody's psyche.
Wild goose chases.
So you're trying to change behavior. And part of this is like, it turns into a fucking game. And you just went to first it's like, ooh, I don't want to eat that because I saw what it did to my blood sugar before, right? And I'm trying to keep it average, so I'm gonna refrain from eating that food. Good, bad, however you're categorizing that food. Fucking blueberries, beets, celery, potatoes, rice, whatever.
Pure dextrose, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It's like, ooh, I knew that kind of spiked me, so I'm gonna stay away from that. It goes from that to that food is bad. Somehow the psyche turns from I'm gamifying this. But then it turns into a psychosis. Yeah. Right. Of I can't.
Neuroses.
100%. Right. So that's an issue. The other thing you just brought up there was the sleep. Right. And the relating the food to the problem, not the insulin resistance from being sleep deprived to the problem. We know that with getting less than 6 hours of sleep significantly impact solid sleep for that matter can significantly impact your blood or your insulin sensitivity the next day. And if you're less insulin sensitive, what are all the other things that drives that we already know about? Appetite is one of those things, right? Either lack thereof or craving things that you wouldn't typically eat. And then again, what happens when you're got that fucking thing on your arm and you eat something, right? When you're a little less insulin sensitive, right? Or you overeat something, right? And overeat is relative, right? In any case. But you look at that and you go, oh, that food's bad. Look what it did to my blood sugar.
It spiked my blood sugar so high, yeah.
And then the next thing you have is these fucking psychos running around saying, this food is horrible because it does this to your blood sugar, or this one's going to cause cancer because it raises my blood sugar, which in cancer is a cause for all-cause mortality. So we're starting to draw these lines. And then I see people like the Washington Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, the fucking Daily Mail, whoever else is printing these articles that we make fun of all the time. And then somebody has to come over the top and unfuck that for the general public in a way that basically, here's the thing, and we have some favorites that we both follow, but you almost have to insult the public into understanding how dumb they were for buying into this in the beginning.
You have to get their attention by talking shit.
Yeah. That's the age that we're in right now. And so, again, it's getting off my soapbox here. I'm so fired up about this because the little fuck games that the FDA is playing with the weight loss industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the medical device industry, and then the fuck games that then get down that then trickle down into the fitness industry, the diet industry, the supplement industry, and now we're getting into the peptide industry and all that other kind of stuff. It just creates this huge fucking problem. Meanwhile, our nation continues to get sicker, fatter, and again,
more pharmaceutical dependent than ever before.
It's poorer because we're spending more money on this shit. It is wild to me. So, what's the point of all that? Why I say all that to say is here's just another thing that's been thrown into the mix. And when you brought it up, I was like, do we really want to talk about this? Because this sounds pretty boring. We're talking about, do people really want to hear about this? I don't know if they do or not. But part of me is now at this point, kind of in this talk, just thinking, I'm glad we did this, because if they hadn't heard about it, they're fucking gonna, because there's money in this.
I mean, to be honest, I think it was, it was some sort of divine download that, I just happened to think of this topic, and it was just approved literally today is what, the 14th, 13th, something like that. And it was approved on the 5th. So not even 2 weeks ago. I think this is, potentially going to open some floodgates, and you're going to hear more and more about this. And this is the new gadget, the new gizmo. Yep. And it's, more opportunity for people to overanalyze and under execute.
Want to take bets on how long this takes to show up on our Instagram feed? Like the advertisement?
Probably when we turn the sound off and we open it up.
The advertisement?
Yeah, probably later this afternoon. Yeah.
And any poor bastards that are listening to this right now, like they're going to shut this thing off and go, oh God, don't say that. And then they're going to open up their Instagram feeds. It's going to be in that.
It'll be there.
Sorry, guys.
It'll be there.
My bad.
Yeah, Freestyle Libre. Here we come. Sorry, I had to drop at least one brand.
So glucose monitors, bad or good?
Well, I would say as a medical device used under appropriate supervision for someone who has a medical condition, yes, like what it was actually designed for. I think there are those prosumers who do their homework and just maybe take all this stuff, pretty seriously, that may actually be able to handle the data and interpret the data in a way that is meaningful. But I think the idea here, even though, COO says, no, it's still for diabetics, the mass population of non-diabetics that get their hands on it, I think it's only going to make things more confusing. I think it's just not necessary. And I can see it creating anxiety and, like you talked about, neuroses, creating, even more categorization of foods as good or bad without understanding the nuance. More dualistic thinking, which that's the last thing in the world we need right now, is more dualistic thinking, aka this is bad, this is good. There is no in between.
Oh, and then the next part of that is like, if you choose the good,
you're also
also bad.
Yeah,
you're bad. But if you choose the bad, you are also bad. Like there's no in between there. You've chosen.
There's a moral implication to it.
Yeah, exactly. Your integrity and your morality is on the line. Yeah. You got me fired up today on this one, man. Like this one.
I'm excited. I knew you were going to be bored about this topic. Or I thought you were going to be bored about this topic. But here we are. We brought up the fuckers.
Yeah, 100% fries me because this is going to come up, and it's going to come up again. And I think we did this with one of our recent episodes that we did where we reserved the right. Let's see what happens within the next year.
Was it the Wegovy one?
Yeah, it was the Ozempic. It was the semaglutide one. It's like, let's see where we're at in a year. We didn't even have to wait that long. We had to wait like
a couple
6
months.
weeks before all that shit started coming to light. And it's continued to do that. By the way, I loathe this thing. But my oldest daughter was over the other night. We'd gone to dinner. We had dinner over at the house. No, we'd gone out. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to watch what was this? The Oscars? Is that the one we just had? That was the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Is that the Oscars?
Yeah, same thing.
I don't know. It's a bunch of fucking rich people showing up, worshiping one another. It's stupid. But she was over and hanging out, and like we don't have TV. We have like
streaming.
We have Amazon Prime and Netflix. That's what we have.
Only two streaming.
We have Paramount.
Oh, well, you can't get it through our TV because our TV's so old.
There you have it. Our TV's so old. It doesn't and our Apple, dude, I like fuck TV and technology. The point is she wanted to watch the Academy Awards. And so she pulled it up on her phone and she was slinging it to the TV or airplaying it to the TV. And so it was on. So I was watching it, just biting my lip for most of the time, commenting some of the other half of the time.
The most important thing is we were spending time together at the end of the day.
That's why I was sitting there on the couch dealing with it, because I don't get to see her that often. I love you, Abby. Sitting there on the couch watching, the first thing that came up is like these ladies coming out. And first off, no, hold on. And I don't want to put it there. Some of the jokes at the beginning about people not eating for weeks prior to the awards. There were jokes being made about this by whoever the jackass is that's
Jimmy Kimmel, I believe.
I don't say that name in here ever again. But that guy making jokes about like not eating 4 weeks before. There was even another skit that was done where they were talking about like all the people that hadn't been eating in preparation
diet
to show up. And people were getting on stage, and I was looking at people going, "Oh my God,
I look emaciated.
Eat something." Eat something, I don't know what, but just eat something. Like they look so unhealthy. And I just looked at Cece and I go, how's the Ozempic market there in Hollywood right now?
Oh yeah, I do.
Booming.
It was disturbing.
Booming.
Yeah, I don't know if you if you go back and look, like I even saw some Instagram stuff come up, like people were commenting on some of the other stupid things that happened. I was just looking at people going, this looks unhealthy. And I know where it's coming from. And it's always been a challenge there, in that industry. Yeah. That is what's driving it, and I get that. But again, going back, like we didn't even have to wait 6 weeks before all the bad stuff started to really come to the top. And guess what? I'm not hearing about it at all right now. Like it's not in Like I'm not hearing anybody talking about it outside of the negative side effects that people are having from it. Mm-hmm. Mostly the total destruction of like in their intestinal lining
situation.
Oh yeah, they're just people are miserable. That is a huge one right now. The headaches and nausea are another big one. And we haven't even been doing this thing long enough to really understand what the longer term implications are of the muscle wasting that's going on in this whole thing. It'd be interesting to see what happens with that. But this again, so when you look at something like that, how fast it came on the rise and how it's impacting people and how it's being influenced and being embraced.
Promoted. I mean, if we're gonna be on the Oscars track, it's a big joke. Oh yeah, you're looking slim. The Ozempic diet, like you're dying on the inside. Isn't that funny?
One of these days, there's going to be a Hollywood movie on this, right? Or an independent film on this, and it's going to uncover all of this stuff, right? That's happened, and people dying and dropping like flies because of this stuff, or how they're going to wind up having half their colon and intestinal tract cut out because it's been destroyed. But sorry, getting on a tangent there, coming back to these devices, these continuous glucose monitors, I think it's kind of another one of those things that could lead down a very, very slippery slope. Yeah. While, their initial thought about it is like, this could be really cool for that type 1 diabetic or the type 2 person that's really struggling and needs some things. And look how perverted this shit gets and how fast it gets. It just disgusts me.
Yeah. And I think that, in the FDA news release, there was some MD or something like that. They frame it as, well, this is health equity. This is how we get these valuable devices in the hands of people, who may be challenged via their, who don't have access to a doctor or who don't have health insurance.
They don't have access to the doctor. How are they going to afford that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they can afford to pay $400 a month out of pocket, but they can't figure out how to have health insurance. So that was, I found that to be pretty funny, some of the quotes in there. That this is about improved access to these devices that most people don't even need to begin with. Why do we need to improve access to these things? I'm pretty sure diabetics who actually need them have the access they need. Yes, are there probably some cases where someone is pre-diabetic, they're heading towards diabetes, and this is somewhat of a medical intervention.
So can I tell you, I had a conversation actually with somebody here who was talking about how one of her friends is a type 1 diabetic, and because these CGMs were going to people who don't necessarily need it, it was actually taking it away from the people that really do need it.
Or driving the price up.
And how it was making that friend of hers upset and angry. And I get it. I get it.
Yeah, no, that was kind of as I was researching this more. Yeah, you took the next words out of my mouth. No, it's all good. Because that's the absurdity of it. Oh, we're improving health equity. We're improving access. But when you kind of look at some of the, I was scrolling through Instagram, doing some, poking around, and you get these diabetics that are like, hey, I'm type 1 diabetic. It's already expensive as fuck to be type 1 diabetic. And now the price of my CGM that I need to stay alive is now increasing because demand is increasing because this improved equity and access is driving demand and therefore, more profit to be made. Yeah. So someone who actually needs it. And it's the same thing with Ozempic too. We've already heard that as well, that people who, are actually using it for the medical purpose that it was designed for, the intended purpose, it's much more difficult for them to get now because it's fucking sold out or it's extremely expensive. So yeah, we're improved access, huh? Yeah, improved access to money in your pocket.
That's exactly how I would have finished it. Like, let's look at the bank statements for, the companies that are supplying this, the insurance companies that are also getting a kickback on this, and obviously those within the medical industry, doctors, physicians, equipment suppliers, those type of people that are all taking cut. And
even our health influencers who are hacking them or hawking them rather on their podcast.
All for the betterment, and
it's all for equity.
It's
all for equal access to these medical devices that most people don't need.
I don't even know what else to say. Well, congratulations, Stephen. You got me pissed off. I'm going to walk out of this room right now.
Yeah, I wonder how many times you said fuck.
Yeah, there's a lot of fucks in today's podcast. Eli, you You might have some work to do, man. Sorry about that. And for anybody that's offended by that word, sorry, not sorry, but at the same time, like
we're all adults here.
Yeah, we're all adults here. This is you can whatever. I'm gonna go out there on the floor and have to burn off some of the steam and lift some weights and not care about my blood sugar. Just actually run it into the ground. To be quite frank, I appreciate you guys joining me for this, Stephen. Thanks for opening up this conversation. I think we revisit this in about 6 months, kind of see where we're at, maybe a year with it.
I see a bunch of people walking around with little circles on their on the backs of their arms.
Yeah.
I'm a trendsetter.
Yeah. And so for people that are listening to this and had to listen to my little rant or our rant on this stuff, if you're on one of these monitors, we're not saying it's bad. Like, we're just saying, like, why? Like, if you've got a medical, condition where this is helping improve your life, fucking that's what they're for. Like, that is the best part of modern Western medicine and technology, is that we can help people live more vibrant, less impeded lives to do the things that they need and want to do. Use that, take advantage of that, obviously. But for those people that are thinking that this is somehow going to better their lives overnight, or that they're going to learn so much more about the things they have very little basis of knowledge on anyway by strapping one of these things on, think about how that impacts both you and other people for that matter. And I don't mean just like you mentioned, the taking away from, those that may need it, that are now having to pay more. But I'm thinking about, like, whose pockets are you lining by purchasing one of these things and contributing to that? Like, I think you have to take a little bit of responsibility there. And that's taking it into a little bit of a different space. But I think that's where we need to be as consumers. This is going back to our other talk we were having about, about these meal prep companies that we, in the other episode we did, like, hey, look at the smaller the smaller business owner and the things that they're trying to do and provide to the community.
You have some level of responsibility as a consumer.
Well, 100%, because pretty soon, like, okay, so you're saving $2 a meal, or in this case, you're saving a couple of bucks, by going to, company brand X that's on the internet, or you can buy it on Amazon. And you're saving that $2 because, the guy down the street is charging $2 or $3 more, not, in your neighborhood, not understanding that that's the cost of doing business. And, in your state, in your city, or whatever else, and you're squabbling about $2 or $3, or maybe it's $15 for that matter. I don't. It doesn't matter.
The principle is the same.
The principle is the same, because when that small guy is gone, guess what's going to happen, right?
The other guy's going to drive their prices up because you have no other choice.
Exactly what and because they can, which is what we're talking about with this thing here. So when you get into these things and you start contributing, or you start consuming, think about what that consuming of things ends up driving in terms of, the larger picture, and these larger, more unhealthy behaviors, this larger financial, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess, like, how does that impact, the larger financial impact things on, down the road? These are things that you should be thinking about. So again, not to get up on that soapbox, but look, that's how we got to where we're at. Like, go back to the shots and all of those things, 100% financially driven. And you don't believe me, look at Pfizer's fucking P&L for, the last 3 years. They've made more money than they've ever made. Did you contribute to that? Did you contribute to that? Because if you did, maybe you're part of the problem. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying perhaps you are. So think about those things as you're going down this path with these CGMs and whatever else. I think there's some cool stuff that you can glean from this stuff, but maybe we'll learn more as the data begins to catch up. And maybe I'm totally wrong, and I've been wrong many, many times. Probably
maybe they're going to cure the diabetes and blood sugar issues that we have in our country.
I'll believe it when I see it.